Hiya and welcome back to the Hammered Workshop. Today we are making something very cool. It's called Henry. He's named after my dad because, well, even guys need something luxurious, but that doesn't mean it's just for men. Lots of women need a toiletries bag or super cool storage or craft storage bag. So this is Henry. And we've called him our ditty bag, which is sailor term for jam everything in, including sewing kits and all sorts. So we're really excited to be sharing him with you. Well, let's not wait anymore. Let's open the box. Here we go. Henry has a unique flex frame design. So his flex frame is included in your box. Very cool. It's really big. It's 300 ml long, so it's plenty big enough for anything to go into the bag. I'll take out this liner. So here's Henry's base piece. And then these are Henry's side pieces. These are the tabs that go at the top for pulling open and closed. These can also be monogrammed. So while one comes with the Hammered Leatherworks logo on it, the other one you can customize really easily with stamps, or we can laser engrave it straight from the workshop for you. And these are his side pieces. Underneath that, you'll find your envelope with all the small things and your certificate for your name and date when you made it, because you know what? It's pretty important, especially if you're giving it as a gift, to say to someone, hey, look, I love you, and this is why we did this for you. So that's really cool. So I'm just going to pull these out. I'm just going to close the box and put it over here. So let's get started. If you haven't watched our sewing tutorial, Saddle Stitch 101 with one needle, then go now. If you have and you're a bit of a leather stitching guru, then let's get started. So we're going to start with the side pieces of Henry. So get out your needle and thread. You'll have a matching 7-ply thread and a awesome high quality John James saddle needle. I'll put this over here. And then we're going to need the two side pieces. So you're going to go for the two squares that have the V cut out of the center. The first seam we're going to sew is this one in the middle of the V here, that's going to pleat the piece up so it creates that lovely triangle shape when it's closed. You'll need a pair of scissors to complete this. Here's some I prepared earlier. Love my scissors? Get them on the website. So let's get started. We're going to sew the center V together, which works like a dart in regular sewing, which allows us to bring the piece together. So we need 4 times our stitch length. 1, 2, 3, 4, and chop. And we're going to need another one because we're going to do 2 pieces. Chop. Okay. Let's set that aside for now. So thread your needle. There we go. Take your piece and literally fold it in half. So the milled sides, the smooth sides of the leather are together, and we're going to sew down this row of holes here. So I like to start at the bottom because it means they're not tidying at the bottom of the bag and it doesn't get knocked about too much. Leaving yourself a nice tail from the second hole up. Always go backwards before you go forwards. That allows you to, oops, always go backwards before you go forwards. Allows you to not do what I just did and pull the thread all the way through. It kind of locks that starting stitch and keeps your seam together so you don't get your holes muddled up. And off we go, up and down. And when you reach the end, you come back the way you came. Here we are back where we started. Just got to go through that hole there. And then we have thread in every hole on both sides. We're going to do a double stitch in this one at the bottom here. There we go. Pull our needle off our thread and tie a knot on this one, because toiletry bags can get a little bit, or storage bags can actually get knocked around a little bit, so we just need to give it a little bit of extra help. And trim them nice and short and tuck them back against themselves. Voila! And now we're going to do exactly the same for the next piece. So we're going to thread our needle, fold the piece in half, do our second hole up, backwards before forwards, give it a tuck so it's nice and tight, and off we go again. We're at the end, so we're going to go back the way we came. There we go. Now we're going to do that second stitch to reinforce. Up, down and through. Pull the needle off. And you're going to tie our knot again. Trim. And tuck, and voila, another one down. So as you can see, Henry comes together pretty quickly. So our next step is we're going to take the base piece, which is this one here. We're going to place it, the smooth side, which is the milled side of the leather, down on the table, so we have the suede side facing up. You're going to take the two side pieces that we've just pleated, and we're going to sew them to the base. They're both exactly the same, so it doesn't matter which side you put them on. Take your thread and measure 4 times your stitch length, which is just down the side there. 1, 2, 3, 4, and trim. And the same again, because the bag has 2 sides. Put that aside. So thread your needle again. There we go. Put one aside for the moment because we can only work on one side at a time. And starting from, line up the corner of the pieces like this. We're going to start between the layers. So I'll show you that here. See, we've only gone through the one piece. That's going to put our tail between. Once again, we're going backwards through both the layers before we go forwards. There we go. So your tail should be between the layers like that. And we're going to work our way across the seam. And once you've reached the end, we're going to go back the way we came again. So we're going to put our second stitch in that final hole, which you can see we've done that on this side. So we're going to do the same on the other side. So we're going to go back through just one layer of leather and come up through the center. There we go, and pull the needle off, tie a knot, trim, and tuck. And now we're going to repeat the same on the other side with the piece of thread we cut in the step earlier. So thread your needle, there we we go. Unfold your pleated piece. Line your corners up. Once again, starting between the layers. Leaving a nice tail for knotting at the end. Go backwards before you go forwards. And then across you go. Okay, we've reached the end, and now we're going to go back the way we came. And here we are back at the beginning again, so we're going to do our double stitch through both layers. See the 2 layers there? And then we're going to come up through the middle, pulling off the needle and tying a knot. Trim the thread, tuck it in, and voila. So your bag should be kind of looking like a bag now. It's got 2 ends, it's got a base. Our next step is to add the sides. So we're going to connect them to the base of the bag first, which is how we've done our sides here. So you need to take one of the sides and we're going to connect them like this. So you're going to match these bottom seams here together at the corners like we did with the side pieces, and we're going to sew all the way along and back again. So take your thread, measure the distance and go by 4, times it by 4, 2, 3, 4, and trim. That should be enough for that seam, and then we need to do another one for the other side. So we measure the same amount again and trim. So we have enough to sew both bag bases now. So we're going to pull out one piece and we're going to thread our needle and here we go. So matching the corners as I talked about. There we go. Starting from the second hole in between the layers, once again, you see there, leaving that nice tail we keep talking about for tying. Go backwards before we go forwards. There we go, and off we go. We're going to sew all the way to the end and back again. So here we are, we've reached the last hole. Now we're going to go back the way we came. So here we are, we've made it all the way down and we've come back again. So we're going to do the double stitch in the final hole. So here we go. You can see there's 2 layers of thread in that hole now. To create the 2 layers on the other side, we're going to come through the hole and come up the middle, as we've done before, which keeps our tails in between the seam. So we're going to tie our knot Give it a trim. Tuck the ends in so they disappear. Give it a squeeze. Beautiful, there we go. Now we're going to do the same on the other side. So I'm going to open this up like this. There we go. Take the other piece with the hammered logo and line it up on that edge there. Thread my needle. I'm going to turn it over, so we're going to work the same way again. Up the second hole down. We're going to go backwards before we go forwards. There we go. Give it a pull. Once we've done that, our holes will line up perfectly all the way down to the end, and off we go again. So you're going to sew all the way down to the end and back again. So here we go, we've reached the last hole. We're going to go through there and we're going to come back the way we started again. So here we are back where we've started. We've gone all the way down and come back again, and every hole has a stitch in it. We're going to do our double stitch for reinforcing. Through we go, and as we finish the other sides, we're going to do as we did before. We're going to come up that second hole down where we started, between the layers, and pull the needle through and off. Tie your knot. A tug, trim, and tuck. So now you should have something that looks a little bit like the picture on the front of the box. These ones here. There we go. So our next step is to position the tabs that are going to open and close the bag, these ones here that we put aside in an earlier step. The best way to do that is you can either fold the leather gently and make a small crease. So this hole here is our center hole. And do the same on the leather tab itself. This one here is the center hole above the second M, and then you would line the two up. You can either glue this in place if you have some white flexible craft glue that's PVA based, or I'm going to show you a cool trick that you can do with your offcuts. So if you just thread your needle so this is with a bit of scrap that you've cut off from one of the seams, holding the tab in the place that you want it. If you put a small stitch running 2/3 of the length as such, and then tie a knot, Now we know that's center and in the correct position for when we sew the seam. And we're going to do the same I'm going to do the same for the other side too. Once again, you can measure or you can fold, it is up to you. I'm going to fold, matching the holes, matching the sides, pinch, 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 open it out. We can see the crease just here on this center hole. We're going to do the same with this piece, crease, crease, crease. That center hole there, we're going to match the two holes up, and I'm going to put just a holding thread like we did on the other side that runs 2/3 of the length of the tab. Pull my needle off and just tie a knot, and that's going to hold them correctly in place, because the next bit gets a little bit tricky. So our next step is to add the flex frame to the bag. These D-rings on the end here can be removed if you want to. Also, if you get stuck, there are screws on the bottom of this, on the frame here, that can be undone, and the frame can be pulled apart and put in a different way if you prefer. I find this, the way I'm about to show you, works best. So you need to open the frame. I'm just going to work from the other side. You need to open the frame, and you take the bag and you bend it gently. Actually, yeah, bend it gently around the frame itself. And then as it formed into position, you're going to close the frame. I'm using my finger to keep it open slightly at the moment. Bingo. And what happens is when you sew this first side, the frame actually is going to hold your leather in place for you. So just even it up a little bit, so you've got a nice even length, the length of the flex frame, and fold it over. Now we're ready to sew the flex frame in. I'm just going to get rid of all these tails. So once again, take your thread and measure the length of the leather we're going to sew, which is, and times it by 4, 2, 3, 4, and trim. And we're going to do the same for the other side. Wonderful. Take your thread and pinch the ends and thread your needle. And now we're going to sew from beginning to end, sewing the flex frame into place. So same as every other seam, we're going to start by coming up through the second hole down, leaving a nice tail on the inside to make it easy to knot at the end. And then we're going to go backwards before we go forwards. Beautiful. And off we go. Now that you have reached your tab, you're going to sew those first 3 holes that don't have the staying stitch in them, like that. We're going to snip the stay stitch from the back, being very careful not to catch the leather, and pull our stay stitch out, and now everything will be lined up for you. So here we are, we've reached the end stitch, and now we're going to go back the way we came. Right, so here we are. We've sewn all the way to the end and back again, and we're back where we started. We're going to do the double stitch as we've done before. Up and down through both layers. There we go. So we now have the double stitch in the end there. Turn it over and we'll see our tail hanging out between the layers there. We're going to go through just the one piece of leather again and pull that through. There we go. Place it down, tie a knot and trim, and tuck those threads in against themselves again to keep them in place. Now that we've done that, we're going to add the frame to the other side. This one gets a little bit more tricky because you have to do it with the frame open. So I'm going to thread the needle with the new piece of thread that we cut in the previous step. There we go. So to do this one, it's going to be as simple as the first one. You're going to take the front piece and you're going to wrap it around the frame as such. That's why we haven't sewn these sides in yet, so we can use them for access. So as we did before, you're going to come up the second hole down from the inside, leaving a nice tail for tying a knot at the end. We're going to go backwards before we go forwards, so matching up that line of holes so we have a perfect match all the way to the end. Excellent. And back up again. I'm just holding that tail just here. There we go. Give it a nice pull, and we've anchored that end now. So just gently guiding the thread through both sets of holes in the leather. Hang on a second. Fold this over a bit more. There we go. Now we can see through. There we go. One big tip for when you're sewing this one, because it's a little bit more fiddly, is to check. So, turn it over, check the back, make sure you're going through the right hole at the same time in the front as you're going through the one at the back. So just as we did before, we've reached the tab now. We're going to snip the stay stitch. Careful not to cut the leather or damage it or scratch it, and pull it through. And now all of our layers will be lined up the way we need them to be. Now that we've reached the end, we're going to go back the way we came. So here we are, we've made it all the way down and back to the beginning. So we're going to do our double stitch in the last hole, as we've done every time, to make it nice and secure. So there we go. See the double stitch in the hole there? And then finishing off the same way we started, in between the layers, only going through the back piece of the leather and pulling the tail up in the middle. Tie a knot, trim, and tuck. Perfect. So your bag is almost complete. I'm just going to tuck these little sides in here. You should have this gorgeous rounded top on the flex frame of the bag, which is just stunning. Your tabs should be in place for opening and closing, and all your leather pieces should now be attached to one another. The final step is to sew what is called a gusset into the bag, which are these side sections here. So we're going to close the bag to make this a little bit easier. You're going to match your seams. Now, you need 4 pieces of thread long enough to sew the seam. This offcut from the previous seam is long enough. So what you can do is you can use those, or you can cut from your bigger pieces that you had left and use those as well. So as before, coming up through the second hole down, leaving a tail, matching up the holes in the corners. Off we go. You're going to sew all the way to the end and then back again. So here we are, we've sewn all the way up and back again. We're going to do our double stitch in that final hole without pulling your needle off is good. There we go. And then, as we've done before, we're going to go through just the leather layer up through the middle where our tail is. Pull the thread off, tie a knot, and pull, trim, and tuck. And we're going to repeat that now on the other 3 sides of the toiletries bag. So measure your thread, trim and thread your needle. And I'm going to do the same on the other side now. So starting in the same position, coming up the second hole from the bottom, leaving the tail between the layers, go backwards before we go forwards. Off we go, all the way to the top and back again. So here we are, we're back where we started again. So we're going to do that double stitch in that last hole and then come up between the layers where we started once again. And then we're going to knot, trim, and tuck. And that is one side completed. You're doing awesome. So now we just have to finish this side here in the same way. Find your thread, measure again. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Thread your needle, and starting from the second hole up again between the layers, leaving a nice little tail. Up we go. I'm just going to close that because that's why it's hard. All the way to the end and back again. Here we are at the end again, so we're doing our double stitch, coming up between the layers again, to tie our knot and trim. Tuck those ends in. And we've just got the one to go and then we're finished. So find your thread. Thread your needle. And do a little happy dance because it's the last one. Alrighties, here we go. So starting from the second hole up from the bottom again, leaving a nice little tail just enough to knot. Off we go. So all the way to the end and back again. Here we are, back where we started again. We're going to do that reinforcing stitch in the last hole. Same as before, up through the middle, tying our knot, and to trim, tuck it in against itself, and guess what? You're done. Henry is finished. You can add a wrist strap or a body strap to these D-hooks here on the ends if you want to. You can take anything inside, toiletries or knitting, project bags, craft bags, absolutely anything. That even make great, gorgeous storage sitting on a shelf. The design is just, it's absolutely beautiful. The leather is thick enough that it sits on its own, and when it's got this lovely triangular look when it's done. So thank you for tuning in. We're really glad you decided to make Henry. And do share your finished project with us on Instagram using the hashtag #IHammeredThis. We'd love to see you again soon. Thanks for joining us. Woo! Congratulations. Bye.